Welcome to Living Magically. I am your host, Magical Michelle, and I am here today with my good friend and getting better friend, Eric.
Mhm.
He is the head of the Mythical Life podcast that he shares with his business partner and life partner, Sarah. And I'd love you to tell us a little bit about your mythical life, which is kind of, well, mythic.
Hi. Well, thanks for having me here. It's so nice to connect with you again. Um, Mythic Life. Yeah. Um, you know, where should I start? My life has just been feeling like an epic journey, and um, I am always so happy to be working with and supporting others and really waking up their intuition and listening intuitively to like l- leading a soul-led life. That's really the intention of Mythic Life, and the work that I do with people is to support them in really recognizing that level of consciousness. And I think for so many people, a mythic life can be so many different things. It can be being a parent, it can be gardening, it can be also getting more into the other realms of what is possible. And that's always been the place where I've really been drawn to, is into a little bit more of the esoteric and play and wanting to bring ritual into my life. Um,
I
you know,
think
I
that's where we really meet intellectually, is that we want every day to be a little bit of a spiritual ritual and a celebration of life. I think that's
yeah,
something we agree upon.
absolutely. It's become a necessity for me. I find when I take a vacation from having ritual, having tradition, um, just what happens in my thoughts and my feelings and my health and my habits. Like I I can fall to these really strange mundane places if I don't hold that sense of spiritual practice. It's and then manifestations stop. Like when I'm not listening to, that spirit guide, all of a sudden I get grumpy, my abundance shrinks, like all these things happen. So it's taken a lot to really learn and listen to that side, even from practicing theta healing as my, one of my main methods, my tools that I use. Um, that, theta healing is not a ritual. It's a tool. And I love exploring that other side and really creating that design um of practice, of ritual. Like what is it, the actual art form of it? Like what is that art form of smudging? Is it's not just lighting sage and letting it do its thing. Obviously it has consciousness to it. It does its job with lighting it as an incense and letting it just burn, but actually getting into the art form of intention and focus, and like playing with it to make it more ritualized, to having it hold more intention, and holding that, what is art?
What? Oh, wow. That's a whole nother fabulous question. What is art?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if we want to do that today, but
Hmm.
here was my first thought when I was excited about interviewing you today was that I know that you create ceremony and and very intentionally, and it's a pretty powerful year this year. Is there any specific ceremonies that you're excited about creating right now?
um it feels like a real renaissance. for me personally, because I grew up in a community in my formative years. I didn't get to be in that community into like my adolescence, but I would always visit it for its ceremonies, for its rituals. I grew up in the foothills of the Sierras, surrounded by these wild beatniks living out in the woods that were these return to nature people that, my parents homesteaded 15 acres, and we lived with kerosene lamps and outhouses and no electricity, and um there were two real main traditional times that the whole community would come together, and that was for a May Day festival and for Halloween. And we would come together and we would have these ceremonies and rituals of, the nymphs coming out with the green man and holding that and blowing the conches in the four directions, calling in the elements in the directions, and having a big altar out in the middle of the field, and then carrying that on into, the maypole and a big potluck, and then bonfires and staying up all night doing Native American, gambling games and stuff. And like,
That sounds
so
amazing.
it was this incredible experience. And it was something that anchored so much for me when I was a child. And now I'm living up in the Hudson Valley, um, where there is a lot of that culture. There's a lot of community here. And, as a family, I'm wanting to bring that for my kids now, because I can always have ceremony and ritual for myself personally. I bring it into my daily life in different ways. Um, but that's definitely one that I'm looking to really create with some of the community around me, is to come together in a collective and bring some of those traditions forward. From the Ridge kids, from the Nevada City community that I was born into, and bring that forward. So that's something that I'm working on right now with some of the other families. My daughter goes to a Waldorf school here locally, and there's a really awesome culture around us. So
That
yeah.
that's that's kind of awesome. And we have that community in Central Florida. I'm
Oh,
really lucky.
yeah.
We can create sound healings, and um, we can go to the beach and have ritual on the beach, and all of those things. And it was interesting because off off screen, before we started talking, we were just organically talking about the last solar eclipse, and you were talking about going up on a mountain and having an experience. And I think
Yeah.
that's exactly what we mean by living magically, is not necessarily always knowing what you're going to experience, but the intention to create and allow an experience.
Yeah. Um, and we're coming up, you know, we're recording this obviously before the solar eclipse. Um, but that's one that is going to be a very personal one. This solar eclipse has a significant meaning for my family, because it actually falls on the yard side, which is the year anniversary of a death of Sarah, my wife's father, who was also a Leo. So it's really interesting, the Leo sun, and being in this full solar eclipse on his yard side is going to be really significant. So as a family, we're all going up and going to really hold that for a connection in with his spirit. And you know it's it's an interesting thing. Like, what really cast me on a lot of exploration of life and those questions of what life's about, what is possible, and really kind of challenging what life is. It was actually going through my father being sick and dying when I was 14, and that happening at that age, and then going into this adolescence. I did it in a very unstructured way. I kind of lost myself to a lot of things and explored. Unfortunately, without having structure, it had a real consequence. And this is something that I learned from Theta, is that, we are engaged with the planes of existence, and there is obligation in exchange. And that's what's so beautiful about these traditions of ritual, is that they designed them. They were mechanics, they were metaphysical mechanics.
They're formula. Theta
Yeah,
healing is a formula, and so is so many of these powerful traditions.
absolutely. Like a shaman will know to clear the space, create the altar, cleanse and purify the people that are participating before going into the ritual. Like there's steps and tools that are used to create and facilitate. And this is where learning and studying and really getting deeper into those histories of looking at them more as techniques, in their traditions, can empower us to utilize the tools and to find what can authentically work, honoring their traditions, but also bring it forward, bring it modern.
When I hear you say that, I think about the fact that when we're in the theta healing brainwave and we're using the process, we are surrendering the old. Like if we're doing a healing, we're taking something out and surrendering it. And that is exactly what the shaman is doing. If we're creating a ritual where we're doing a burning ritual, we're surrendering it to the element instead of necessarily to the seventh plane. But the element is a plane and a part of that plane of existence. So it's just a different formula that works, right? Release something because you have to have room to be able to bring something in. We create an energy state to be able to receive what it is we're calling. Because so many people, I think where they get mixed up in manifesting is that they think it's outside of them, but they have to be in a state, an energy vibration to be able to receive the thing.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's why we create ritual and ceremony and healing experiences, is to create that state of mind.
Yeah. Through that place, it does bring spirit into our daily life. It really opens up to actually what is around us. It fills the air with life force. And that's where we do get to start to have these awesome experiences and stories. From that place, you can start to open up into those mystical places. I have to say it, dragons are real. Like,
Yes. Yes, they are.
There actually are fairy portals. There really are these places that are really incredible. And yes, people can just stumble upon having a metaphysical experience, but when you bring tradition and ritual into also personal development, working on beliefs and having the tools to practice to open up consciousness, you then start to experience it. You start to realize that, oh, wait, I'm not just having a thought, I'm speaking with an ancestor, like these types of places. And it expands the universe. It expands the world around us.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I really want to know, because for me, theta healing was the tool that made that expansion for me. Like I was already doing, of course, I was already a Reiki person and I was already teaching crystals and stuff. But I know that theta healing became the portal for me to be able to have more room in my energy field to be more magical. But I always want to know from a teacher like you, because you've been teaching theta healing really long time. How many years, first of all? Like 12 or 13?
22.
There you go. So you're not just old school, you're first school of theta healing, right?
Yeah, I think I was the second graduating class of the basic training.
That's amazing. So what I really want to know, the big question is, which class is your favorite to teach? I know it's a hard question. It's like
That is
how many
hard.
of your children, which one's your favorite? I know it's a hard question.
Um, wow.
Should have warned you.
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, for
Maybe there's
me, I definitely circulate to really the basic theta healing course. I mean, I absolutely do love them all because each of them has a real unique energy. Um, I think a lot of classes were the evolvement of other classes. You know, like the first planes of existence class, which is a 5-day upper level theta healing course, the 7 planes of existence. Um, was the advanced class. You know, like the growth of the technique, it started with basic and then was intuitive anatomy. And then I remember being at the first intuitive anatomy. That was the first summer. I remember I drove to Idaho with a car that most people didn't think would make it there. And I was
I did
taking bets
through
with
my
people to
first
see if I
class.
could make it. And it made it all the way there. And then as soon as I got there, it died. And I was stuck in Idaho with a broken car, having to rely on Vienna's family to get rides around and things like that. But you know, I did the basic instructor's course and then stayed for the summer in Idaho and worked out of Vienna's office, you know, just selling crystals and studying and being around waiting for the first intuitive anatomy. And I remember being in that intuitive anatomy and it completely transforms my life. That class really is that deep boot camp of cleaning out the subconscious. You know, it cleans out the congestion of all those limiting subconscious beliefs. And at that point, I was so focused on health because that's what brought me into theta healing, was having a health crisis, that I was going to college, doing a nursing program, working on cadavers and like studying about the physiology. So the idea of intuitive anatomy, of knowing how to read the body and focusing on being a medical intuitive, was where I started from. But then when Vienna and we all started having these big metaphysical experiences because of the amount of time we were spending in theta, you know, bottles of essential oil were refilling themselves. I remember almost having getting stuck in Baja driving my car because I was running out of gas. I'm over 150 miles from the nearest gas station and my gas is at running out, and I'm just in theta going, there's plenty of gas. There's plenty. And watching the gas tank fill up as I drive to a half tank, you know, having these types of experiences is like, wait, what's happening? This isn't just doing healing and working on personal development anymore. This is like, we're getting into this strange zone that Vienna was getting those messages of, oh, you're getting ready for DNA 3, but you have to learn, you know, certain things to be able to step into that. So that's why I personally always put 7 planes of existence class before DNA 3, because once again, it's a formula, right? To perform an ability, you have to have gone through life lessons to learn a virtue, right? And
Yeah.
when you look at the downloads in advanced class, most of them is downloading virtues. Most of them is virtues. So she was already getting 7 planes of existence class all the way back in, you know, what was that, 2003? It's been 20 years since the first advanced class. So yeah, I love the basic course because it gives that real focus on, I'm in a relationship with creator. I am one with co-creating my life, and it really is that activation into free will, um, and those foundational fundamentals of the technique of theta. I always love coming back and teaching basic and getting into the intuitive development of advanced class. The power of downloads is so beautiful, and those courses really do open the door to everything else. So that's why I
Absolutely.
really hold such a kindred energy with them. um, yeah.
Well, and I literally, my mother has a saying before she passed. She always said, "My favorite flower is the one in bloom." And so I've sort of translated that to my theta healing teaching to my favorite class is the one I'm teaching. The
Yeah,
the people I'm with are the best group I've ever been with in that moment because I'm really, really present with whatever it is that's happening is the best, right? Right now is the always the best.
so true. It's actually a rule in my house that, because my daughter would often ask, "What is your favorite color?" And I go, "Well, I love them all, but maybe I'm willing to answer what is my favorite today." What is my favorite today?
I like that.
Yeah. Uh,
Well, I'm going to ask one more big question and then we'll
yeah.
probably wrap it up. But what are you excited about right now? Like when we think about living magically, we always think about there's something to get excited about. What magic are you making right now?
Mm. Well, we just passed the spring equinox, and this has been a big year. I've been seeing in the world around us, the people I've been working with, and then also in my personal life and with my family, that um, a lot of people are saying last year was a hard year. And, you know, growing up and exploring psychedelics, I came to the realization that there's no such thing as a bad trip. There's just levels of learning, and that some lessons are challenging. And so actually a client of mine yesterday, we were working, and so often we ask, "Oh, how are you doing?" And it's like a person that is spiritually attuned, no matter what's happening in our life, we're great. We're like, "Oh yeah,
True.
life is great." So it's kind of a funny question. But I am really excited in building right now to inviting spirit in more, to my relationships, and finding those places of connecting with guides. I really feel developing that relationship right now, and one of my spiritual goals, because I I hold belief, and then there is getting into a deeper understanding and knowing and experience. I've experienced a lot of different things in my life, but I'm wanting to attune more and more to the energy of angels.
Hmm.
I do, crystal layouts, and I meet with the Council of Twelves, and I do contract work, with the, fifth plane tribunal and stuff like that. I've had a lot of fifth plane experiences. And I've worked with spiritual medicines before and connected to deity energies. Um, but really, that essence and understanding and feeling and experience of an angel outside of just closing my eyes and invoking it through creator, and um, is something that I'm really looking to bring in. So, being in this spring energy, I'm kind of looking at, maybe I'll do a cleanse. So I'm kind of looking at doing a fast, coming up here, probably in preparation for, the solar eclipse, just to clean out the vessel a bit and attune to my psychic side a little bit more. And I'm really excited to embrace that relationship with some angelic presence, and feel and really get more familiar with what is angels in that expansion of environment around us, because they're so massive. They have such big energies, and have that experience.
That is exciting. One of these days, we've got to be in the same place at the same time and trade a crystal grid, because I teach it too, and most of the people around me don't practice crystal grid work, and I just love it. It's quite that isn't my favorite class to teach, but it's definitely in the top 5.
Yeah.
Is running those, because everyone is different. And I think maybe that's why I like it so much, is that every experience gets to be building a deeper relationship with your soul, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that's what we did. We would do that every evening almost, Vienna and Guy, and we would exchange crystal layouts instead of watching TV. We'd go and visit past lives and do
so much more entertaining than TV, right?
Absolutely. That's when we really learned how important it is to make sure we clear our space and clear ourselves before going into them. Don't want to be jumping into wayward's lives instead.
Oh no, that I can imagine that could get dangerous. So clear
it happened
space.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Can be distracting.
Wow. So the lesson in that is always be really clean with whatever work you're doing, making sure that you're very high on your intention and high on your clarity for the work you're doing.
Yeah. And if you're asking to go to heaven, make sure you're asking which heaven to go to as well.
Oh, that's an interesting. Someday I'll want to know more about that.
Yeah,
but
you may end up on a galactic starship.
Their idea of heaven.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, if they wanted to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're wanting to learn more about, Mythic Life, mythiclife.com. We're on Instagram, the Mythic Life. And, we do have our podcast as well. It was so wonderful having you on as well. And that's Mythic Life. So across the board with the social medias, YouTube, we have a lot of videos on YouTube as well. It's all under Mythic Life, and you can look me up at Eric Brumett. So if you want to email us, info@Mythic Life. And thank you for having me on.
And I also know you do one of the best theta sharing experiences at least twice a month. You do practice session groups, which I always encourage people to go and do as many practice sessions as they possibly can.
Absolutely. Holding that sense of community and coming to the practice groups. We have them online. It's the Mythic Healers Collective. And so once a month, we do a deep dive on a topic where I walk people through personal work and they work on themselves. And then we have a Q&A once a month, and then a session swap practice group. So it's a great collective. It's a great group. Yeah. So that's always fun.
Thank you so very much for sharing some time with us. If anybody is looking to just find a little bit of a fun practice, I'm offering 22 Days of Magic. You can download that. It'll be in the link. It's just a little video series to help you get back on track if you've been off track, or maybe this is your first time really getting into a new magical practice. But we are open to to receive when we are clear and ready. And this will hopefully help some people get ready. So it's called 22 Days of Magic, and the link is in the comments. I appreciate you, and to all of you who are watching, just have a wonderful time and live magically.